I'm happy to give you those good vibes, Hat. Nope. Music is too low. Let's go down to... I think 9% should work. That should be okay. Hello, everyone. New story content in your games. I am so happy to hear that. Let me just check my stuff and things. You'd think I'd have this set up ahead of time? Okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take care of the alert problem. Let me add a scene. And hello, everyone. I hope you are well. Exactly. Okay. That's not what I want. No, only one T in alert. Browser source. Sure, we'll do that. And we'll just put it in the center of the screen because I done fucked up. And we'll make that big. Being set up ahead of time is so pro streamer. All things crashing as soon as they go live. Yes, absolutely. And thank you very much, Ad. I appreciate that. I do. Let me go to my recent events and let us... I'm sorry, what? No, that's not right. You did that wrong. Thank you. Okay, so that came up on screen, which is good. I think I'm going to slide this over here. I don't know why the bits that you threw at me, Goggles, are not... It's not showing up on my alerts on Streamlabs, which is really irritating. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move that down to over here. Or I could just put it underneath me. We'll play it just one more time. Thank you. Yeah, that works. We'll put it over there. It's just for tonight. Well, thank you, but I worry about it because I want people to know that I appreciate them and I miss stuff. Taco Wednesday happened because I remembered to pick up the tortillas today. I am happy for you, Hat. I really, truly am. That is a wonderful thing. Apologies for the traffic noise. Since I moved, what was I going to say? Oh my. Thank you very much, Hat. I appreciate that. It already went off screen. Okay. But it looks like the alerts are working the way they're supposed to, which is good. Yeah, okay, just checking to see. How's the new state treating me, and how is the family? It is the... Thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the 100 biddies. That's very kind of you. The new state is good. I've had... it's been a hell of a year for a variety of reasons. The move out here is great. I'm not going to lie and say that it wasn't at all an adjustment. It was, however. This area is slightly more sparsely populated, but still similar to sort of like the one that I grew up in. So after being in New York City for... Was that like an in-between syllable burp? I think it might have been. Apologies. After living in New York City for 13 years, it was actually a very nice transition for me. It was not without its bumps, but the move itself went fine. A couple of minor hiccups there, but really it went a lot smoother than... There could have been a lot more problems with it. And I had some snafus that just took some time to work out, like the registration on my car from New York, because I bought the car in New York before I moved out here to be closer to my family. And there's no reciprocity with New York and Pennsylvania in terms of the payment of sales tax. So I had to wait 6 months in order to register the car here in Pennsylvania. Otherwise, I would have had to pay the sales tax twice because I had already paid it in New York when I bought the car. And the guy who sold me the car did not tell me any of this. So there were that's one of a few things that kind of were kind of monkey wrenches in the works, but it's all working out, and what remains I'm still kind of taken care of, but it's being handled. My biggest stressor right now is that I'm presently between jobs, which was a conscious decision on my part. This stress had been affecting my mental health for quite a while and had started affecting my physical health. And I have enough savings that I was able to afford to leave there while to give myself more space and time to look for another job. So that will be, by all calculations, should work out totally fine. But basically what I did was trade massive anxiety spikes and then drop-offs for a more low-grade background anxiety of where my next thing will be coming from, my next source of income. But I am working on it, so there's that. But yeah, especially with everything happening. Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, that was one of the things that was like, this year, had been at my last company for 13 years. So in addition to, what was I going to say? In addition to the perks that come with that in terms of, cost of living increases and salaries and such, I was also eligible for more time the more years that I had there. So I got a pretty decent amount of paid time off that I could take every year. I took every hour of it in this past year, both in, and still felt like I had very little time to myself. Because at the beginning of the year, it was all focused on dealing with my brother's estate, and then there were family obligations, and I love my family, and it was good to spend time with them, but there wasn't any time for me there. So yeah, it was several piles of stress that I've now got a chance to sort through a little bit, which is definitely a good thing. But like I said, still a little bit of anxiety there in the background, and that'll be there until I know things are rock solid secure because I have another job. However, that is not what I'm here to talk about tonight, although it is something that happened in the past 5 years, and so it's important to deal with that. But because of the various things that I have going on in my head, the anxiety and the ADHD, I'm really good at not either not giving myself credit for successes, or not giving myself as much credit as I deserve, or flat out forgetting about them until something comes up that reminds me of it. So I thought I would take some time tonight and just kind of go through my affiliateness and what that has meant for me over the last 5 years. Thank you very much, Goggles. I appreciate your crossed fingers and good thoughts and all of that. So yeah, because I've really meandered around in terms of the content that I put on my stream. One of the most, well, I mean, I've been creating content before I even got on Twitch. I was on YouTube back in 2007, 2008. I think it was more like 2008. And then I did a weekly straight to the camera vlog for almost 2 years. And got kind of frustrated with that and stopped for a while. And I dabbled with other channels along the way. And when I first started on Twitch, I actually I made an account that I was primarily using just to watch other people's streams, and I hadn't started streaming yet. But I also named it after that what was then the current YouTube channel that I had, which was called The Infinite Decline, which was another basic vlogging channel, of which there are a million out there. And I had originally started streaming occasionally on the Infinite Decline channel, and then I had this idea for didn't realize I was making videos for so long. Yeah, I was, and in varying different levels of professionalism and what have you. But yeah, it's been an on again, off again thing through the years. Like I did that 2 years, and then the Infinite Decline I did for a year and a half. I worked on the road. I was part of the crew for a while, maybe about 8 months, maybe a year, that worked on the Road to Nerdfighteria documentary project, which is part of the Vlogbrothers fandom. The Infinite Decline was, I was sort of running out of gas with that right around the time that the revenue share changes happened on YouTube, which we've heard more about, on Twitch in recent days, but all media companies do that stuff at one point or another. And 2018 was the year YouTube did it, and they screwed the small creators. So I kind of took a step back from all of that. I can actually show you one of my, do I still have it up? Yeah, let me, let's do this. This is one of the higher production value videos that I did on the Infinite Decline. But it is, oh, fuck you. There we go. But it is an example of the type of stuff that I would do. And why not? We'll just watch it. It's muted.
One of my teachers in high school told me that I had to become a doctor because there was no other profession in which my atrocious handwriting would be acceptable. This was back in the 80s when cursive was required in all schools. Writing in cursive is faster than block printing because of its flowing motion.
Hopefully it sounds good.
Not in my case, mind you. But from a practiced hand, it tends to be more efficient and legible. At that time, everything, other than formal communication and business documents, was handwritten. Every report card, restaurant check, medical record, and bank deposit slip.
Music
legible handwriting was a...
Let me, Is that better? Is it overpowering the video? You know what? For the sake of the beauty, that's good? Okay. For the sake of the video, I'm gonna...
Skill essential because of its flowing motion.
We'll go back to the beginning of this.
One of my teachers in high school told me that I had to become a doctor because there was no other profession in which my atrocious handwriting would be acceptable. This was back in the 80s when cursive was required in all schools. Writing in cursive is faster than block printing because of its flowing motion. Not in my case, mind you. But from a practiced hand, it tends to be more efficient and legible. At that time, everything, other than formal communication and business documents, was handwritten. Every report card, restaurant check, medical record, and bank deposit slip. Legible handwriting was a skill essential to a functional adult.
Until the video's over.
Since my handwriting was barely adequate, I started typing out my work as soon as I possibly could, starting with my mother's old typewriter, which was so heavy I could barely lift it. In high school, I'd type out book reports on my Commodore 64 computer, and I'd print them out on a dot matrix printer that sounded like 100 bees were having an orgy in a coffee can. Yeah, I'm a nerd from way back. Still, cursive was a part of my life for longer than most people because of my choice of career. Nonprofits aren't known for being early adopters of technology. I spent a good portion of my career writing notes in paper records and completing forms by hand. You don't know how glad I am that shit's over with. It's been at least a decade since I've handwritten anything longer than a greeting card, and I've noticed something recently. In the rare moments when I have to write longhand, such as taking detailed notes in a meeting, it's difficult for me. I'm so out of practice that I have to concentrate on how to write properly. More often than not, it's wasted energy because I end up mashing the letters together into an unintelligible mess, nearly as bad as when I was a kid. It's simply not a skill I use frequently enough to maintain it.
It's only gotten worse.
Which is why I roll my eyes when I hear people of my generation grousing about the fact that some schools are no longer teaching cursive writing. We're raising a generation so lazy they won't be able to write their own names, those damn millennials. No, they are just adapting to the natural progress of the society they live in, while you're whining about your own obsolescence. Just because something is a long-standing, time-honored practice doesn't mean it will always be useful. There is research that strongly indicates that cursive writing has benefits for cognitive development over block printing or typing. But cursive isn't the only task that can foster cognitive development. It's certainly not a compelling enough argument to warrant keeping it around. And looking at it from a slightly wider angle, the problems that kids of today are going to face tomorrow are also evolving. While there are objective measures and standards for cognitive development and abstract reasoning, the manner in which those abilities need to be applied is continually changing, just as it was when we were growing up. It's much more likely that computer programming, for example, will offer children practical advantages in their adult lives, and programming has been shown to increase reflectivity and divergent thinking. Who's to say those cognitive abilities won't be more valuable when confronting the problems of the next 50 years? If that doesn't sway you, consider this. For almost 300 years, the mastery of the slide rule was an essential skill for anyone who needed to solve complex mathematical problems quickly. But with the advent of affordable calculators in the 1970s, slide rules became obsolete. Arguments in favor of cursive writing can be applied here as well. Slide rules give a visual representation of otherwise abstract numbers, making them more concrete and fostering our ability to understand advanced math in a way that calculators cannot. So abandoning slide rules has put us at a disadvantage. Well, since the slide rule fell out of favor, we've built affordable computers, GPS, ATMs, MRIs, the artificial heart, anti-lock brakes, the World Wide Web, and the smartphone. We did okay without the slide rule. And I think we'll be okay without cursive writing.
Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that I was doing. Most of it was not as well produced. Whenever I could, I would try to do something that was a little more visually interesting, but a lot of those videos that I did on that channel were kind of meanderings about that. And that was, like I said, that was the extension of the Twitch channel was just the extension of that. I thought maybe I would stream every once in a while and we'd see what happened. And mostly I was just using the Twitch channel. That was my user ID when I was in other people's channels. And then I had the idea to do, what do you call it? I had an idea to do something that was more artistic, which I was always kind of hunting around for. I always wanted to, for the bulk of the time that I was on Twitch, I was a creative streamer and still am occasionally. But I put the music back. But hopefully you can hear that. I turned it down pretty low. Right around the time that I was thinking about doing that, there was a lot of talk from people like Stephen. There was AI was in the mix a lot right around that time. Interesting how things cycle around, because it is, again, obviously, with things like ChatGPT. But Stephen Hawking made his pronouncement that he believed that artificial intelligence was the technology that was finally going to either completely destroy us or result in human beings no longer being the dominant species on the planet. And Hawking's a smart guy. I'm not saying that he's necessarily wrong, but I think that the motivation for the development of AI and the way that it was, the people who it was being most, who are doing the most significant developments of it were either the commercial sector, like Google and places like that, and excuse me, or the military or educational institutions. And I don't trust the military or the commercial sector. And you can make an argument that the, higher education sector definitely has more laudable goals, but still has plenty of politics to play there too. So that's not necessarily ideal either. Not to mention the fact that most of the research that's done in those environments tend to be heavily weighted in the direction of, cishet whitedom. So my kind of response to that was I believe this is the video that I have. What I started out doing was I had this sort of three-prong idea for this mixed multimedia type of thing that I wanted to do on the Twitch channel, and did for a while, because I wanted to have more physical. I was a photographer and I was a writer. I'd never been able to draw Yeah, shouldn't trust most of the educational sector either. Believe me, I know. I am grading them on the curve of the people I'm comparing them to. Google, Facebook, and all of them, and the military. The education sector is definitely the least offensive of the three, but yes, I absolutely understand what you're saying. Grading on a curve, yeah. So what I came up with was this idea that I would put, I like computer coding. I wanted to learn how to either draw or paint or have some more tangible kind of artwork that I was doing. And, obviously the streaming. So what I did was I wrote this program. I called it an AI. It really, really wasn't. My justification was that, I don't even remember at this point. It was a very primitive thing, and what it would do is, I should back up. The motivation or the idea was that the way we keep AI from completely destroying us is that we build into it the things that at the time I thought, like modeling maybe things like inspiration and creativity and more human qualities might make it less dangerous. Which is interesting that I'm talking about this now in the advent of ChatGPT and all the AI things that are basically stealing other people's creative work in order to generate their own images. Again, the human factor is the one that's the problem there. But what I did was I put together a very basic program that what it would do is I could put in a text file, sort of modeling the idea of inspiration. I would feed a text file into this program, and it was written in a language called processing, which is meant for visual artists to more easily access computers and create sort of digital environments and stuff like that. And this is a time lapse of one of the streams that I did at the time. It would output basically just a series of lines. It would read the text, and basically what it was doing was just looking at the ASCII codes for the characters that are in there, and that is all one continuous line that it drew across the page, and it would just like either make a right or left, up or down based on what it was reading and the values of the text that was there. So exceptionally primitive, very generous to refer to it as an AI, but I did at the time because I was like, the idea was I'm not going to produce something of the same quality as Google, but this would give me a structure to work on the computer coding, the painting, and the streaming all at the same time. And what I would do is I would print out the thing that this program created on watercolor paper, and then on stream I would add to it. I would paint it. I've got a couple of videos in there on the Art for the Apocalypse YouTube channel where I was doing it with one with colored pencils, one with just straight lead pencils, and just kind of creating something different that was a mixed media thing, and hope that if I did it for long enough and worked on it, that it would give me an excuse and an opportunity to kind of improve all of those skills. As is often the case with me, I did not realize until I was into it what a massive undertaking I had set myself up for. So there wasn't much improvement on any one of those fronts. But I did it for as long as I enjoyed it, right? And this was back in, I guess, 2018-ish. But I was kind of getting frustrated with the process as it was going on. Probably because I gave myself too much to do. So yeah, let me skip ahead with this a little bit. So it has the finish thing. Like I can, even looking at this now, I can see, let me stop it. The perspective is okay, but there are definitely some places where it falls apart in terms of the shading. Not both of these walls should be blue. One of these should have really not. I got the perspective right, but the lighting wrong on it. And that was the whole point, is that as I looked at this stuff, the way an artist does, you improve, right? But as a person with ADHD does, I couldn't stick with it long enough to actually make that to improve it more, which is, that's how my brain works. But yeah, so I started out with with these. That's an example of just the drawing that would come out of the printer, and me trying to. There's my parents' dog. Me trying to do something with it. That's not. And this is one. I believe this is print from Community Sketch. Maybe not. There's one in here that was actually the one commission I did when I was doing this, because a colleague of mine was interested in the art and wanted a piece. So I did one for her with, and the text that I used that was a poem that was written about one of the lakes in the area, or maybe it was a description of it. No, I think it was the poem, because she lived in, and to the best of my knowledge, still does live in Minnesota. So I had gotten tired of that and wanted to do something different. And that's when I started doing the photography on stream. I kind of went the exact opposite direction and kind of reinvented things a little bit. I took stock of, instead of focusing the entire stream around what I couldn't do and wanting to build skills, which for me is not something that's easy to do when somebody's peeking over my shoulder. And I didn't anticipate how much that would kind of grate on me. I think that was a big factor in it too. So I'm like, look, I've been a photographer, an amateur photographer for years. Why don't I just see if there's some way I could do that? And up to that point in time, I kind of told myself that I didn't have the necessary equipment to do that. And one night I just tried doing it. I figured out a way to, get the, use the camera on my iPhone as a live camera. And so I started photographing things there. And that was literally the control key on my keyboard was the first thing that I photographed on stream when I was doing that. And this was not done on stream, but this was another one where I was using a macro adapter on my then iPhone. I'm assuming they're still out there making aftermarket lenses for the iPhone. It was called Olo Clip, and it had a macro adapter so you could get them really close to things. And that's all this is. This is my iPhone 6, 7 maybe, with that aftermarket thing. And it got in so close that you could actually see the hollows in the chopsticks. That the details on the shots were, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was kind of the whole point, it gave me a seemingly wide range of material that I could kind of work on, and just using ordinary objects to try to create interesting images. Again, most of which were abstract. The other thing that I was still doing at that time, actually, this might have been the first one that I took on stream. This hard drive, because I do remember specifically the hard drive because I remember the lighting. And again, this is still with the iPhone. Streamed photography last night on Twitch. Yeah. Excuse me. But one of the things I was doing also sort of overlapping with both of these things, both the paintings as well as when I started doing the photography, were these mixed media art pieces that I called the Community Sketch, which was, I had written a program that would just, again, I believe in processing, that would just put lines or circles or squares on the screen in semi-random places. And the chat, people could type the RGB codes into chat and change the colors. So this one, they could change the color, they could change the size, and this is a time lapse. It was running much slower than this during the stream. But yeah, I had it a square aspect ratio so I could pull it directly over to Instagram. And we did a few of those too. And that was something, again, that I would have liked to have progressed on, but I was, as an amateur coder, hobbyist coder, I was bumping into the limitations that I had there just in terms of the amount of time that I had to put into that. It was a cool little experiment. I would have loved to have seen where this could have gone if I could have evolved this a little bit more. But again, looking back over what has happened in the last 5 years, and you have places like Midjourney and other things like that that are have used that on stream and engaged their chat with that. I watched one streamer one night, Steven Spawn, who is an amazing human and a great advocate. He does not have because of his disability, does not have the manual dexterity to draw or paint or do anything of that kind. And so one night he had the Midjourney channel in his Discord, on his Discord. I think they had a bot that plugs into your Discord, and both he and the chat were sort of collaboratively creating things with Midjourney, which was great. Like that's the ultimate idealized version of what that kind of AI can do in terms of giving people opportunities that they wouldn't normally have, because he then had the opportunity to actually make art. The ongoing issue of, are you making art? You're making art out of other people's arts. Are there arts? Are there images? Like, if you're not doing it with Creative Commons images, then are you really just stealing from them? So there's a lot of complexities with that are really unfortunate. But yeah, that was when I went into, spent, I'm pretty sure, over a year or two on a weekly basis doing photography. I had the lightbox set up. It was actually clamped to my desk 24/7, because that way it would just be there when I was streaming. And I would just take any random object that I thought could possibly create an interesting image if I got really, really close to it, and then just photographed it on stream to see what happens. So these are just post-it notes, right? But using the shallow depth of field, the benefit of, in my case, I wasn't using a macro lens. I was using extension tubes on a regular 50 millimeter, a fast 50 lens. So being able to focus in really tight on something is the advantage. The disadvantage is that the depth of field gets really, really narrow. So virtually almost everything in the frame is out of focus except for the one thing that you're focusing on. But I like using that to create more abstract images. That's another thing. I think that in terms of the things that I like, that just enjoy, that work against me as a content creator, was the fact that, like, I'm always drawn to things that don't have broad popular appeal, that aren't necessarily like full on, I am not punk rock by any definition, but if people are going to look at things that they're going to create and they're on Twitch, the people who are painting pictures of Marvel characters or anime characters or whatever are generally going to have a higher viewer count than the guy who's shooting a light bulb at, 18 times magnification. Give you that telephoto lens for your iPhone. To the best of my knowledge, Oloclip is still out there making aftermarket lenses for the thing. I don't know with the 3 lenses on the one thing how they would do that. As part of your appeal, your perspective on the world is interesting. I appreciate that. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying that there's a difference between, as you well know, Goggles, there's a difference between innate quality and mass marketability, right? I was still hopeful at this point that I was going to at least turn this into some kind of a side hustle, which has long been abandoned, because it's just, you have to be producing something that people actually want, or that they need badly enough that they can't afford not to buy it. And the stuff that I do tends not to fit into either of those two categories. And if you don't do one of those two things, then to be successful, you need a massive marketing budget, which I also didn't have. But anyway, at this time, I had an Etsy shop. I had several of these pictures that are on here were, let me move this over so that my head is not covering the actual image. I had several of the images that are on my Instagram were also, I had set them up with a printer that did direct drop shipping so people could order prints. And to their credit, I sold 3 or 4 prints, all to people who, and again, I very much appreciate them purchasing them, but all to people who who were making a special effort to support me because I'm their friend. They liked what I did, don't get me wrong, but, you know, it's not like I'm painting Bob Ross landscapes, which are, you know, very marketable, not only because they're Bob Ross, but because somebody's going to hang something on their wall, a pretty landscape, as opposed to a picture of Christmas-themed jelly candies. Is, you know, the landscape's going to have more appeal. You remember the pencils. There are pictures of the shavings are on here somewhere. That is a dried mushroom, believe it or not. I'm pretty sure I have the pictures of the shavings on here. Did I? Let me see real quick. They might be further up. I don't know what. Yeah, these are the pictures of the shavings. And yeah, these actually, I think in some ways might have come out better than that one's a little weird. I like the fact that the shavings are so big, and you can see such detail on them, but the picture is just soft in a way that I hadn't intended, and was really, I think because you've got it flowing, because the shavings are almost kind of like potato chip like. I think it was moving in and out of the depth of field, and so the details on this were a little wonky. But yeah, so I was doing this kind of stuff for years. Which other ones are kind of my favorites? And these are like, this is a CPU cooler fin, an Intel cooler thing. Literally a bouquet of flowers that I bought at my local supermarket. Were these, the rose pictures came out particularly good. That one was one of my favorites, catching the bud inside the rose. And this one was a major pain in the ass. Catching that was a nightmare. So and I did shoot it on stream, right? Let's see, several matches lost their lives. It is on stream, yes. Because they would, this was the flame was what I was looking for, obviously, but so I had to light match after match after match to catch it right when it was giving me what I wanted. But yeah, pennies, forks. This was the, I don't remember what it's called, but it's the coil of an electrical motor from an electric drill that had been soaked and rusted and corroded to the point where it was no longer functional. This one might have also been from the drill. I'm not sure. Windings and armature from an electronic motor. Yeah, that would have come from the drill. This one was a little bit more creepy, steampunky. And this was actually the side of the housing of the drill. I just liked the way this came out. Party streamers, like really the most ordinary stuff that I could find that I could get some kind of interesting images out of. These two aren't necessarily my favorites, but what's interesting about them is that that's literally in my apartment back in New York City. It had the building was like 70, 80 years old, and it had one of those clothes hampers in the bathroom that was actually built into the wall. It was metal, and it had a latch on it that you opened the door with, so you could get the clothes out and take them and wash them, and it had a folding top so that you could actually put the clothes in it. The latch had fallen off, and I hadn't gotten around to putting it back on yet. And so that was a subject of the photography for that night. I usually had 2 or 3 subjects at a time. Me shooting Maki rolls, just anything that I could find that I thought could make interesting. This one is probably one of my favorites because this chainmail piece, it's actually a keychain. And do I have one of the full view of it? Yeah. So that's the keychain, right? That's what it looked like. This was made by go back. It was made by a friend of mine, Ran Out of Cake, who streams here as well and is I love those colors too. Anyway, she is also a streamer on Twitch. She does creative, and at the time she was doing chainmail. She actually made this keychain, and I believe I bought it from her. And along with it, she sent, because she knew I was doing this at the time, she sent some extra pieces Did I photograph any of the extras that worked out? This was the one that actually made it onto my Instagram. I did photograph some of the other stuff too, but she sent me some rings and some other stuff. And as a result of me then having that in hand, we decided one night to co-stream. We weren't partners, so we did it with the multi-stream TV, whatever it is, that lets you watch both streams at a time. And she was working on another chainmail project herself, and I was photographing this one at the same time, and we're talking back and forth. So we got two different perspectives on the same medium, which was really cool. I would have loved to have done some more of that with some of the other crafters that I know. And that was something that just, I had stopped doing the photography at that point by the time I was able I stopped doing the photography before I was ever able to kind of set that up with anybody else. But I like creative co-streaming. I wish I could have done more of that. This is, I believe, again, it's another electric motor, but I believe this one's from the VCR, because at one point I had an old VCR that I was getting ready to throw away, so I just pulled it apart and looked inside for things that were interesting. Let me just look at the pictures around it to see. Yeah, I don't think I have any of my other VCR photos on here. So this are the copper windings for the thing that would spin the playhead. And that's actually one of my favorites, to the point where it's been my desktop wallpaper for years, actually. So I really like that. I was very proud of that one. I like the fall off of the depth of field, and these, this is actually, it looks like, what do you call it? It looks almost like it has this wrought iron type of look to it. It's actually plastic. So that was a fun one. These are literally the leaves on a steamer basket that you would put in a pot in order to steam vegetables or something. It's one of those ones that the leaves fold over on itself, so it's easier to store. I liked finding stuff like that. And then this is the early days of the pandemic. This was another one that I really liked. All that is the tape from a mini DV cassette. The mini DV that you would use to record video back in the day. I have a bunch of those banging around that I still need to make sure I've pulled all the footage off of them and stored them digitally before I get rid of them. I love the way this came out and the way the light was playing on it. This fucking piece of thread, or dust it probably is because I'm in so close, is the most annoying thing about that picture. And you can make the argument that flaw actually gives it something, but I really wish I had a dust blaster to just blow that off. So at least I would have had the option to not have it there. And trying to take that out digitally, because this entire thing is out of focus. It's off of the depth of field a bit. Miserable. I tried it at one point and I was like, I don't have the patience for this. So yeah, and then I went from the photography to, I think I actually have some time lapses of the photography here too, don't I? These were time lapses. Right, this is the page where I pulled the time lapses from for that. This, let's make sure the volume's down on that. But yeah, I had the whole setup. 3 friggin' cameras because I had a longer view on it. And what do you call it? So I had the zoomed in view through the viewfinder, the webcam view, then the webcam on me. The setup was ridiculous. But I do have the accomplishment of actually managing to do that. And then the still frame would always show up in the center of the screen. And yeah, good times. I miss it to some degree, because I caught some good stuff there. But it also, the pace at which I was doing it, I think was also a big problem for me, and wound it up is one of the things that wound up kind of exhausting me on the entire process. So yeah, that's that. So that is sort of the 5 years in a nutshell. After I stopped doing this, I took some time off to, well, it's not the whole 5 years, but when I had lost the kind of like doing the painting, but for different reasons. I'd kind of lost my focus on the photography for a while because I just wasn't feeling it anymore. I was getting frustrated with the limitations of the, because I had to make a light box that was small enough that I could fit it either on my desk or near my streaming space. I was in a New York City apartment. I did not have another room that I could take over in order to do this. And so anything that I photographed had to be no bigger than 6 inches in any dimension. And the smaller the better. But it also had to be big enough that I could set it in there in a way that I could then zoom the camera down on it and actually get a good picture. So I had to be able to put it in a clamp or something like that. So the technical aspects of that and just finding new things to photograph after a while got really that fit those criteria. Got a little bit frustrating. So I took some time off for it. And then around the time that I took some time off, that was one of my first hiatuses. I had spent a bunch of time putting together a bot that was called We Band Together, which was a service that I was trying to put in place that would just allow just a very basic chatbot. I mean, basic for an experienced coder, a major undertaking for me, but something that I pulled together to allow streamers who agreed to work together to do it, to, like, if you ban somebody in your channel, it would automatically ban that same person in another person's channel, anybody who was using the bot, so that way you wouldn't have to worry about people who got banned in one channel then following for a raid and causing problems in somebody else's channel. Yeah, that was my hyperfocus working, hopefully for everybody's betterment at the time, but then there wound up being problems with the implementation of the bot that people were a little concerned about, just a bot banning people in their channel, which was totally understandable. But it didn't pan out as much as I thought it would, which was fine. But then I went back to streaming for a bit, and at that point I had kind of pivoted mostly toward games. I was just kind of hanging out and doing what I wanted. I had the Etsy shop for the photographs. I had let that close because my yardstick for that was the moment that it becomes, maybe not the moment, but if it spent too long where it was costing me more money to run than it was taking in, then it obviously wasn't worth it, which is exactly what happened. And so I shut that down. And yeah, I'd kind of been, flailing is not the right word, but, kind of trying to find what it is that I wanted to do on Twitch for quite a while, and played around with YouTube a little bit too, and it kind of went all over the place, and that has led to my current hiatus. Well, I guess technically I'm not a hiatus anymore because I'm here, but it leads me up to, like, what's the next step for all this. Like, I've been thinking about what I want to do with the channel, if anything, because I haven't streamed consistently probably in a year. They're just periodic streams where I pop up, like this one. And in a way, I don't know if I'd say giving up is the right word for it necessarily, but I am kind of giving up. What I'm giving up on is the, let's put this timer lapse on in the background because I like this one, or at least I think I do, if it's the one I think it is. I'm pretty much at the point where I don't have it in me anymore to chase the algorithms. I don't have it in me anymore to churn content at that rate. It's just, I've got other shit in life that I have to deal with right now. And so I'm kind of think I'm giving up on the grind. When I have the energy to do stuff like that, to do the kind of traditional things that you're expected to do when you're a content creator, I will. But I'm just trying to focus right now primarily on what I want to do and why I want to do it. Because if I don't, it's exhausting, you know. Yeah, chasing the algorithm is a fool's errand. It's just awful. No, we're not going to watch. We're not going to watch Mariah right now. Just a van lifing YouTuber that I watch. Yeah, it is awful, and it is really exhausting. But if you want to have any, like, that's the nature of the world we live in, right? There's no changing that from the level that we're at. That is the, you know, timeline that we are in, that it was visited upon us by Mark Zuckerberg and what's his name? Jack Dorsey. And, you know, all the other people. And now TikTok is pushing that even further than ever, but without the copyright restrictions. So it's kind of like the Old West in a lot of ways. There's just, for me, there's no point in it anymore. It's not going to, like, I'm never going to leave money on the table if I don't have to, but even the idea of it being a side hustle is pretty much gone for me. You know, I would rather focus on, I mean, I'd rather make the money, but given the choice of just like subjecting myself to the grind and just kind of being continuously disappointed, because like I said, I don't do things that really work with the grind. You know, I'm not Dr. Lupo. I'm not Bob Ross. I'm not any of those people. And the thing that I am is perfectly valid, but it's not marketable in the broader sense. So am I going to keep trying to unsuccessfully fold it into that space, or kind of just do it when I can do it? And I don't have any shame about folding it into. I don't have any problem taking a purely artistic thing and making it a more marketable thing, because that's the nature of our reality. Like, we live in a capitalist world, and if you want to survive, you have to be able to do that. What I'm saying is just, I'm not good at it, right? And there are other people out there who are much better at it than I am. And based on the limitations I have in terms of what am I hyper-focusing on this week and what is my attention span going to allow me to do, I can't be that guy. I can't bang away at a very specific niche for... Because there are people out there who I watch on Twitch, who I would, based on their presentation on stream, I would never imagine that they would be the type of streamer to pull in between 1,500 and 2,500 viewers, except that they've done that, right? They've been that niche provider who's been doing, who's been really personable and really great, and is a very good streamer, just not the type of person you think about, the attention-grabbing streamer, right? But they've been doing it for so long and doing the same content for so long that they are like a pillar of that community. I don't have, my brain alights on subjects and then gets bored with them and wants to move on. So I couldn't do that even if I wanted to. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm saying I'm not suited for it. Validity is needed, but doesn't often put food on the table or pay rent. Yeah, it doesn't. So the interesting thing where that leaves me is that I don't know what I'm going to do next with it. I'm thinking about the next thing that I've kind of been focusing on, which I've actually wanted to do for a long time. I've played some tabletop role-playing games in the past. I've played a handful of them, maybe 2 or 3 over the course of my entire life. Enjoyed them, but I've always been attracted to what it would be like to run one of those games. And I think that would be a cool thing to do on stream. I watch a number of actual play shows and really enjoy them. And so I'm thinking about trying to do a little bit of that. Even before, I was looking into D&D for a while, and I have the books and have read through them a little bit, but that is a fairly, it's probably one of the most accessible systems. That's like a D20 system that people know about. But there's still a huge rule set there that you have to understand really well if you're a DM. And so I've been looking at other systems lately. And it's even before all this shit happened with the open gaming license and all that stuff, was looking at other options for something that's a game that's relatively low barrier to entry that I could, maybe convince a few friends to come and hang out and stream and play a game. Or on stream or off. I want to run the game regardless, but I think it would be nice to do it on stream. So what I'm looking at right now, at the recommendation of friends and also one of my team members, Linoleum Bob, has run several adventures on this system, is let me get my thing up here, is Monster of the Week. Is that flipped on the screen? I really can't tell in the... yeah, I think it's backwards. It's Monster of the Week. Anyway, it seems like a really solid system for one-shots and short campaigns. And I suppose even you could do longer campaigns with them as well. But it's really low barrier to entry and can be really fun. So I've been reading through that, and I'm hoping to put together an adventure that would be interesting enough for some people to want to play along with me. And yeah, that's the story. That's the state of the stream, as it were. So an anniversary, I've had mixed feelings about anniversaries, stream anniversaries. Which, you know what? I've been on for about an hour, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break and stretch the legs. And I'll come back and talk about that a little bit, and then maybe call it, because this was never meant to be a all-night thing. I didn't want the anniversary to pass without some acknowledgement of it, because that's another problem that I have in my life from time to time. You're looking at a man who has forgotten his own birthday in the past, and that's not fair to me. So I am going to put the music back up for a second and go refill my drink and take care of other needs. Feel free to do the same, and I will be back in just a moment. Okay, so I'm back. There we go. I won't be on too much longer, like Party Cat. But I did want, like I said, I didn't want the day to pass without acknowledging it at all. And one of the things about that's a little bit weird, and I've had a conflicted relationship with, oh, I should turn the music down, dummy. Come back here. %. That should be good. Yeah, so I've had a conflicted relationship with, happy birthday. Anniversary, you're close. Hello, Dasmith. It's good to see you. I'm actually winding down a little bit. Well, ish. I was just talking about all the stuff that I'd done since I'd been on Twitch and doing various things. Too many words to type out. I respect your commitment to expressing sentiment with economy. We'll just go with that. But yeah, I was going to talk a little bit about also affiliate anniversaries, because I have some conflicted feelings about those too. I have, what do you call it? So I've been on for 5 years. I've been on for Twitch for longer than 5 years, but I count from the affiliate because I don't remember when I actually started streaming. I'm not reading all that, but good for you. Or I'm sorry that happened. Yeah, that works. But yeah, I've gone through the stages of with the initial anniversaries, especially when, I was in the first year when I had just, a couple of people who were regulars who were watching, who I very much appreciated. But there were a couple of anniversaries that I did plan the whole thing out and giveaways and all that stuff. And, but I had it on an off day because the actual anniversary was not a stream day. And, I had a couple of people who normally weren't in my stream who just knew that I was having the anniversary and made a special effort to show up. And a lot of my regulars didn't. I had 1 year where I played marbles for a little while on stream just so we could chat and give ourselves something to occupy the space while we were chatting. And there were so few people there, even playing marbles, that we didn't have enough people in the game for it to qualify as like a global result, right? That one kicked me in the nuts. I signed off of that stream. But again, that's tied to the expectation that came with, well, I'm trying to grow all this. I want to make something out of this. I want to have, I want it to at least be a side hustle, which, again, I'm not doing anymore because it's not worth the stress. I will take the money if it comes, and I will be as professional as I am capable of with the energy that I have, but it's not something I'm killing myself anymore for anymore. And so, I appreciate the people who've shown up, and that's really as far as I'm willing to let my brain take it, because well, on my good days, that's as far as I'm willing to let my brain take it. I'm not going to say that I don't struggle with it at times, because having a creative endeavor that makes money has been an aspiration of mine since I got out of high school. When I started writing late in high school, and that was my plan B. I did the plan B as my professional career as was expected of me. I got a sensible job. And I was writing on and off in the background. And again, dealing with the other obstacles that I had to writing in terms of managing ADHD that I didn't even know I had at the time. Yeah, it's rare. It's difficult for me to do a thing that I don't know that I've ever had an avocation that I did not want. I did not have the end goal of it being my vocation, because I like that stuff and I want to be a creator. Saying I want to be a creator, then have a comfortable living, but it's so difficult. Yeah, to the point of really being virtually impossible. You're not talking too much. You're totally fine. Yeah, that's the thing, is it's not a creator's world. I don't think that we give aspiring creators a realistic enough picture of what they're facing. We glorify being Misty Imperial, who is a very good friend, and the person who formed the stream team that I'm on, which I'm very happy with and have made some good friends there, has an analogy that she's used for years, which I think is spot on, which is that streaming is like acting. How many thousands of people move to Hollywood every year with the intent of being an actor, and how many of them do you actually see starring in major motion pictures? Those odds are minuscule, and there is a direct translation to that with streaming, because streaming is a form of entertainment, and the entertainment industry is cutthroat, and it's probably better than it is in Hollywood in terms of your chances, but not by much. We glorify artworks from the 1500s without recognizing that they were paid to work for 6 years, living on their patron's estate. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is we still have that today, right? How many artists, how many painters in New York are fellows at this program or that, or have private patrons that buy their art, or they catch the eye of somebody who is a gallery owner and sees something in their work and is willing to put their work up there, and that kind of randomized success. Hard work, in my opinion, now we're going to get a little bit dark, very rarely translates to financial success. Hard work makes you good at things. Hard work can make you a better person, depending on what you're working on. Hard work can help you develop a lot of skills. But making money translates to a very simple equation of you are either producing something, an actual thing or a service that people want badly enough that they will pay for it, or they need it badly enough that they can't afford not to pay for it. And if you don't fit into one of those two categories, to say you've got an uphill climb is putting it generously. And the entire entertainment industry is in that boat. So today we hope to go viral so that we get a few cents for 1,000 views. Yeah, definitely. I think a few cents for 1,000 views is actually optimistic at this point. I don't know that it even works out that much on TikTok. But yeah, so if you're not doing one of those two things, if you're not working on Game of Thrones, or Game of Thrones is a few years behind us right now, but The Mandalorian or Wednesday or something like that, you are absolutely at the bottom. There's a great documentary out there called I think it was The Guy in the Thing. There's two really good documentaries about actors that don't get enough credit for being actors. One is I Know That Voice, which is all about voice acting and talking to different voice actors about their careers and how they've succeeded and how they do what they do. And the other one is, I think it's the guy from, I gotta look it up now. 212 documentary. That guy who was in that thing. Yeah. And it talks all about, basically about character actors, who were character actor being the euphemism for, well, there's two applications of character actor. One is like the Jeffrey Rush or other, these people are these really well-revered actors who completely assume a character and they play these, figures from history, or Count of Monte Cristo, Count of Monte Cristo, or whatever. And then you have the more common use of the word character actor, which is somebody who's talented enough to keep getting work, but we never remember their names, right? That's my understanding of character actor. And this fucking movie title nails it. And they talk to a lot of these people, and they talk to them about, the roles that they play and how they, some of them talk about how even though they're reasonably well known, their faces are reasonably well known because they've gotten sort of secondary but recurring characters on major TV series, that in fact they're making very much a middle class income and need to watch watch their spending and be very careful about how they plan things out and all that stuff that you would think that you would have to worry less about if you were somebody whose face was on TV once a week. If you haven't seen it, Goggles, both films I highly recommend. This is the other one. I Know That Voice. This was really great. We're not going to unmute. We're not even going to play it. But it's a really good. This one is entirely about voice actors. They're both great films. I'm a bit of a documentary junkie, although I haven't watched too many of them lately. But yeah, this actor in particular, Zelenko, I can't even say his name, right? Zelzhenko Ivanek. I believe he was the DA on Homicide: Life in the Streets. Let's look at his filmography. He was in True Blood. But I think one of his highest, he was in Big Love. I never watched Big Love. I don't remember him in House. I think I remembered him in Numbers. But yeah, he was in this film. He's got all of these friggin' movie credits and TV credits, I should say. But he's like the secondary actor, right? They're like the actors that absolutely not only need to be there, but need to be really fucking good. But they're the ones that you don't think of when you immediately think of the show. I remember his face from, I'm pretty sure, now I don't see it here, so maybe I'm misplacing him. I thought that he was the DA in Homicide. Maybe I've got that wrong. I don't even remember him from ER. That's interesting. Excuse me. I'm very coffee tonight. But yeah, so I would recommend both of those. But they're perfect. They can be perfect examples of, what I was talking about. It's how hard it is to just, to establish something. And, not even the wild success of the runaway best-selling novel, right? Because I've also written a few things that I've published on Amazon. Nothing, again, wrestling with the length of the marketable, not being able to. My ADHD prevents me from. I've always wanted to be a novelist. I can't write a novel. I've tried a million different ways to structure it so that I can actually get the words on the page. I've had ideas that I thought would make for decent novels, not even necessarily earth-shattering shit, just a good read. And I can't do it, right? I am hopeful that at some point in my life I will be able to achieve that particular goal, but it ain't happening right now, and it hasn't yet. That's the way it goes. But where was I going with that? There are, the independent publishing thing. It opened up this market to basically anybody who was willing to learn the process of how to put their stuff up on Amazon. And I wrote a collection of essays, narrative, nonfiction. What do you call it? Let me just bring up my damn author page. So yeah, Brooklyn Rules is the narrative nonfiction about when I moved to Brooklyn. Trash was a short story that I wrote, and Glimmer was it's really kind of it's a long short story. I talk about it. I call it a novella, excuse me. I think it was 15,000 words total. It meets the technical definition of a novella, but it is not that's the thing. Again, writing stuff like this, how many famous short fiction writers do you know, right? That's just not the way it works. And the interesting thing is that when I do write short stories, they do tend to have enough sort of plot and character development that they could easily be novels. Those are just limitations that I haven't gotten around yet to this point in my progression as a writer. But it's the expectation there is that you're going to write volumes, that you're going to write voluminous amounts of material. And that was one of the things when I was still trying to kind of market myself to the world as a writer, is that you have to keep writing and you have to write tons of stuff because you don't know what's going to hit. And when it does, you want to make sure that you have a body of work there that people can, because what's the first thing you do? If you discover a new author and you read something that you really like from them, you go back and you see if they've written anything else. But that is so incredibly difficult. And was it Isaac Asimov, I think, who once said, was asked about writing and how he wrote the things that, like the most influential books that he wrote and the ones that maybe didn't. Did he know? How did he know? And he's described his writing routine as that I get up every morning, I sit down at the typewriter, because of when he was writing, and I write from 6:30 to noon every day. And I don't think about the rest of it because you never know which ones are going to work out and which ones aren't. And that you just have to keep writing. I like writing. I would even go so far as to say I love it at times. But yeah, that type of commitment with potentially no payoff, I'm not that possessed by it. The House on Mango Street, that still comes to mind for short stories. Yeah, makes sense. You want to read more from them. Exactly. But that means putting out voluminous amounts of material. And Amazon, for quite a while now, has had their like select program where you can put the book in there and people can get it on there if they subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, and they won't have to pay for it. It's included in their subscription fee. If you put your book in this Kindle select program, then you can also run your own promotions as an author where, like, a given X number of days per 90-day period, you can do a promotion where you can actually give the book away for free. You can't list the book for free on Amazon otherwise. It has to be at least 99 cents, I believe. And the royalty split is really, really bad. If you put something up for 99 cents, you only get 30 cents on the dollar. It's a 70-30 split. And then from $1.99 to, I think, $7.99, it's the opposite. The author gets 70% and the Amazon gets 30. And then over $7.99, it flips back. And Amazon gets the 70 and you get the 30. And I'm sure there's an actuarial table in a spreadsheet somewhere how they justify that. But if you put it in the Amazon Select program, that revenue share is different. Your revenue share is then based on the number of pages that is read by Amazon readers of your books. So it's very similar to YouTube in terms of whatever the most popular thing is that month, that's going to get the bigger slice of the pie for people who paid for Kindle Unlimited during that month. So it pits authors against each other in an even more competitive and, in my opinion, ultimately toxic way. And feeds this thing about... It feeds the sensational thing being the most successful. And it's very difficult to tell whether or not what you have and the number of people that see it and the number of people who are going to be able to read it, whether or not that is more, whether or not you're going to have bigger success putting it in the potentially giving it away for free category, but you get a bigger slice of the pie as opposed to just charging them the $3 or $4 or whatever it is, or $7.99 for your novel if you write something of that length. And I've gotten to the point now where, like, Glimmer was the last thing that I wrote, which again is not perfect. I think it's got a horrible blurb. I should rework this, but I just don't have the fucking energy because it doesn't have enough of a hook to get people into it and explain what it is. But it's been so long since anybody bought it. I'm like, maybe I should put it in the select program just so people will read it. Again, sort of balancing the same consideration I have with Twitch of Do I want people to see my stuff, or do I want people to profit from my stuff? Because unless you are in a very specific bandwidth, a very specific sort of frequency within the entire bandwidth of content creators that are producing that super marketable stuff, then that's the choice you're left with. Do I want people to read it, or do I want to get paid for it? Do I want people to see it, or do I want to get paid for it? So yeah, there's bringing this whole thing back around. It's there is a lot of it is pretty dark the way this stuff has been set up, but that's, you know, it's just another reinforcement that doing it for the sake of wanting to do it as opposed to wanting to be successful is kind of the only way to go. And not because of a sort of Pollyanna-ish, oh, if you do what you love, then they will come. No, I mean, yeah, they will. But if you're doing something you love and they find you, the proverbial they may never be more than 10 or 15 people. That's the part of the equation they never tell you about, right? You just put up this aspirational picture of content creator. You do the right thing and you do it in the right sequence and you produce it enough, people are going to pay your bills. Really not so much. Yeah, that was, what was I doing? One of the things that's always a danger for me with the kind of just chatting kind of format is that I am so fucking tangential that I could start a point and never get back to it. Bringing this back around to the anniversary stream. Yeah, so just, this was another sort of concrete way for me to kind of just take some time and acknowledge, hey, like, I actually have done things that count. The fact that they count for me is enough. It never ever feels that way to me. It's just, again, it's the way my fucking brain is wired. If I could get a refund from the manufacturer, I wouldn't, but apparently they're not taking those yet. The technology hasn't gotten there. But I force myself sometimes to anyway, just acknowledge, yeah, this is the thing you did, and it's harder for you than it is for most people. During 2020, 2021, that was working for you. Then it fell off a cliff mid-2021. Yeah, it's that's the thing too, is that we are working as content creators, and I guess, yeah, we're living in the realm too, where it's just it's not only that we have to do it a certain way and have to fit into a certain box, it's that then when you get there, you have to be constantly vigilant, because they'll change the rules, right? The revenue split will change, or, you know, algorithms will shift in what is seemingly a subtle way, except there's a specific group of people that all of a sudden are getting no attention to their shit for no definable reason, except that yesterday they were profitable and today they're not. And again, going back to Misty Imperial's point about the corollary between acting, what has been the expression for decades in Hollywood is you're only as good as your last movie, you know? And yeah, I've been on and off free Twitch because just that mainstream entertainment. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, it is disheartening if that's ultimately your goal. And I don't think, despite how many times tonight I've said, it's kind of not my goal anymore. It's not what I'm shooting for anymore. I don't know that I'll ever be able to fully 100% believe that and feel that way. I think what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to refocus on the thing as opposed to the goal. Like, I'm always going to want it because I've wanted it my whole life. But it's appreciating success, the accomplishment as opposed to the success, is something I'm very much working on. And I think that that's just where we're always going to be. We're always going to be in that position until we get until we reach our utopic ideal, which we've got quite a bit of work to do to get there. I don't think that's going to happen. Does that saying mean last as in most recent or final? Most recent. I'm sorry. Yeah, the colloquial one was colloquial expression is you're only as good as your last movie, but meaning the most recent movie. At least that's the way I've always heard it said. And, you know, we've watched for decades, for my whole life, we've watched movie stars go through all that stuff, you know, how many stories. And now, with media being the way it is, how often do you see, where are they now? BuzzFeed articles, or whatever happened to this actor who is still, in fact, working and just not doing some, because their show is on Showtime, and it wasn't in the same genre that they were working in when everybody knew them. All of a sudden, they're, you know, put on the back shelf. It's always been that way. It really has. It's just that I think that more of us are getting to experience it firsthand. This is something that these are stresses that normally went to a privileged few. And these days they are more, they're experiences that are more available to all of us, except that the success that goes along with it, we don't have the money to console ourselves with. I kind of went off the rails there for a bit, but because two thoughts kind of crossed in my head, but I think the point got across. Yeah, so it's a lot, and it's very easy to get down on yourself for it, or with it, or trying to work through it, whatever it is. What is it? What am I talking about? Content creation. Ooh, that little thing right there might have been a sign that it is time, in fact, to wind down. But yeah, so bringing it back to Mariah, you're great, but that's not what we're not talking about you. Bringing it back to this, just taking a moment to, among all the other stuff that I just spewed out, is just to say thank you to Goggles and Dasbiff and everybody who's watching right now, and my lurkers. There's got to be a few of you out there, because viewer count is higher than the chat numbers. That I appreciate all of you. People who haven't said anything, people who don't ever say anything. I always said that about my streams, because of the quality of my voice, and often that my streams are super low-key most of the time. There are people who have said to me, I love watching your stream, your voice puts me right to sleep, and then will immediately be like, I didn't mean like that, that's a good thing. And I'm just like, I'm fine with whatever reason you're here. You know, you decided to show up to share this with me. That's all I need. And it's interesting that directly conflicts with pretty much everything I just said about what I wanted out of my streaming or content creation career. But there's a difference between what I want for myself and what I want from, ultimately, I want the people watching it to have a good experience, whatever it is. And so I do appreciate that. You are welcome, Goggles. I appreciate you being here for it. And I appreciate the people who showed up when I was first starting out and had 3 viewers, and 2 of them had me on in the background just so that and a couple of bots, and they had me on in the background so that they could do their own sketching while I was doing my mixed media shit or whatever. I appreciate your presence for the time that I put myself out here, and it makes it better than talking to myself. And that statement that sentence I just said seems to minimize it, but it really isn't. I appreciate if anybody comes around for any reason, as long as they're not here to start shit. I really do. And so, like I said, there's a couple of ideas that I'm playing with, the tabletop RPG thing being one of them, to kind of be on a little bit more frequently than I have been. We'll see how that pans out. Ultimately, I'll do whatever's best for me, but hopefully I will be around a little bit more, and for those of you who I know in chat, I will probably see you anyway, because I'll be in other people's streams. But yeah, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for being a part of all this, and hopefully I will have maybe interesting things or mildly amusing things coming up in the future that I can share with you on here as well. But even if I don't, I'm grateful that you were here now. I am going to take a quick look and see. Let's shut that off. We don't want that. See if there's anyone on right now that I want to raid. So, you know what? There are a couple, but I'm pretty wiped, and I don't feel comfortable just doing the raid and run thing right now. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to raid. And unfortunately, we can't host because we can't do that anymore. But yeah, I'm just going to leave it with. I appreciate you all so much, those of you who showed up. If you said anything, if you said nothing, the fact that you're here, I appreciate that. And like I said, you can watch my Twitter for as long as the fucking site is still there, or in my Discord. I'll post when I go live. I didn't post in my Discord that I went live. Dumb shit. Pro streamer. Anyway, it has been a good night, and I appreciate you being here to help make it be part of it being a good night. And I will talk to you all soon. Thank you again so much. I appreciate it.